Hello, it's Noisy Andrew from partymeeple and welcome to the internet. Today I'd like to talk about my latest print and play project. In 2021 I started building a little 2.4 meter sail row motorboat on my other YouTube channel. Go and have a look if you're a DIY person that's looking for a fun and very affordable little project to follow. And while I was doing that, sailing going around in my head, I said I was going to develop a sailing game, and today I'd like to talk about that. There'll also be a giveaway and a little bit of discussion about the development process, because the game as it is now is nothing like the first idea I had for the game. But with all that in mind, let's go and look at the game we have now. So let's see what you get when you print out all the bits for wake. You get a start line, you get a finish line, which will be up there somewhere. You get 4 little boats, which come on both tacks. So you have like port tack boat, starboard tack boat. It's a sailing term. It's not important now. And a deck of 32 cards, which have a bracket shape on the front and a number and a bit of graphic just to make them look nice. These cards here and these pieces here are from the old prototype version. I've updated the graphics on this card from the old cards and changed a few things around. This is part of the development of the game, which I'll talk about later. You'll notice that's a 10 here, it was a 20 over there. But anyway, you would start a race, people would choose a place on the start line. I'm still writing the rules for that, and then carry on moving up the course using the cards in this deck. At the start of the game, each player will get a boat, and all the cards will be dealt out to one more stack than the number of players. So we have a 2-player game here, so there will be a 3rd stack of cards, which is the draw pile. The entire deck is dealt out. So each player will have a considerable amount of cards in their hands, giving them plenty of options. Boats are moved up the course, upwind up the course, by playing cards. You'll notice that each card has a little bracket on it showing where the next card should be laid. The rule for the game is to put another card on here that the total of the card you play, or the value of the card you play, must be higher than the sum of the 2 cards before it. So you could not put this card here, it's a 3, you would need at least a 15, or higher or equal to. So for instance, you could play this card here, and move your boat forward to there. This card then gets discarded, and the new total that you need to beat is now 25. So let's see how a turn in wake is played. We have the red boat and the green boat racing upwind. Assume the wind is blowing this way down the course. To move your boat, the card you play must be bigger than the sum of the 2 cards already in play. So the red boat would need to play a card that is 11 or bigger. And the green boat would need to play a card that is 15 or bigger. At the beginning of the turn, the card on the top of the draw deck is flipped, and then both players play a card face down in front of them. Once all the cards have been chosen, all the face down cards are flipped to see who will go first. 4 is bigger than 11, and if there were more players, that would continue round. The smallest number goes first. So basically, 4 would like to tack to head this way. Green would like to tack, but their 4 is smaller than 15. So their options are to basically just flip this card face down, and they can add that as a 10 onto their next turn. Red played an 11, which will allow them to tack, and 11 is the same as 8 and 3. So the way they play this card is they pop it there so the bottom lines up with the bracket on the last card. This card disappears to the discard pile out of the way, and their boat is now replaced on that card there. That's quite a handy tack with a bit of a lift. This card and this card are placed on the bottom of the spare drawer pile and shuffled in, ready for the next turn. On the next turn, this player will have 10 to add to the score to any card they place. Their boat may not have moved this turn, but it will have a plus 10 for future turns. So there you have it. But one last point about that example. In Wake, you don't have to use the card that you played face down. You could use the card off the draw pile or one of your opponent's cards, which is why the number on the card that determines player order is quite important. You play a small numbered card, you'll get to go first, but those cards generally don't move your boat as much, or if they do, they tend to be a knock that moves it away from the wind. You'll notice that the brackets on the cards are slightly angled, and this models the way a boat sails upwind with the shifts of the wind that either knock the boat away from its goal or lift the boat towards its goal. And this is how yacht racing works. Crews that manage that situation well are the ones that win races. I should also point out that Wake is only a race from the start line to the first mark. Most yacht races are sailed from down at the bottom of the course up to the top of the course and back again. But if you look at the entire time a boat is spent racing, three-quarters of that is sailing to the windward mark. Because when you go upwind in a boat, you have to zigzag, so you sail slower and further. So this is where the racing generally is. When you're sailing back with the wind behind you, boats all tend to travel at about the same speed, and they can go straight from one mark to the other because they don't have to do that zigzaggy thing. So when you play your card face down, it's worth realizing that you may not get to use that card. If someone plays a smaller number than you, they can nick that card off you and use it. The other thing that happens is that if you can't add a card to your wake and move your boat, you can always put your card face down, or someone else's card, if you don't want them to use it, face down in front of you and get plus 10 onto your total for your next move. Anyway, that's not up for print and play just yet. I'm still fiddling with it, but I wanted to get this video out to show you where things were with the game. But it will be quite soon. I've already redone the art from the really basic stuff I did for the prototype game. In fact, this is the second prototype. The one I demonstrated on the camera is the third prototype, and that's sort of how game development works. So what other versions of sailing game did I come up with in this process? Well, initially I wanted to do a game that was the Vendée Race Around the World yacht race, single-handed in a 60-foot monster that does like more than 25 knots most of the time if there's wind. And that's just terrifying to think about, really. All the way around the world, non-stop, by yourself in a monster boat that's always 2 minutes away from breaking in half, because that's how they're built. And initially my plan was like a sort of simultaneous play card drafting system that allowed you to move point to point. I think I've got a picture up here, point to point around the globe by colours, depending on whether the wind was east, west, north or south. Yacht racing, after all, is all about what the wind is doing. And when we tried that, there was some problems with that, and it didn't, like, you get an idea in your head with a game design and it sounds really good, and then you like work through it with some other people, and immediately you'll find a situation where the game locks up and doesn't move forward, or a situation occurs that is what we call solvable or broken because, you know, you do this thing and you win. No one else can. And although this was nearly 18 months ago now, and I don't quite remember what the problem was, I think it was to do with a player being able to hold some cards in their hand and not let them come into the game to deprive other people of doing things, which is a legitimate tactic in card games. But if it makes the game grind to a halt, it's a bad thing. It should, probably create a minor dilemma for a few turns, and that's all. So I moved away from that. The next thing I went was dice pool choice, where a bunch of dice are rolled and you get to choose a dice. It moves other dice along a track that add or subtract bonuses to the dice as they move, and the dice you use, you roll and comes back on the back of the track again. These tracks were all organised in a compass rose, and once again it was to do with whether the wind was blowing north, south, east or west. And that was alright. Didn't grab me. Felt more exciting than it was, really. Not very exciting. And then I had this idea, which is sort of borrowed from a few games where cards move around, usually aeroplane games. But the thing I like about it is the simultaneous card play. Everyone puts a card face down. You have to read the table and work out what other people are doing. Look at where their boats are on the course, and work out what sort of card they're going to want. Because if you put a card down with a large number, which gives you more chance of adding it to your boat, they might put a smaller number down, move first, and take your card. And this is what we want in game design: tension and choice. And I think this does those two things quite well. Anyway, if you're still watching, thanks very much. I'm going to make 2 copies of this to give away randomly once this video's got 20 views, because that's how my channel rolls. If I get 20 views, I'm excited. When I see 20 views are up or more, the first time I look after 20 views, I will look for the comments and randomly select one and get in touch with you, or make a comment there saying please get in touch with me, and I will make a custom copy of this game, post to you wherever you are in the world in a little bag, by which time I will have finished updating the graphics. It's still very prototype, handmade by these hands, but it will look nicer than the rough ones, and by that time also I think I'll have ironed out a few little things in it. It generally works pretty well. Definitely better than the first 2 games that were based on around the world yacht races. But there's still some things I'd like to tweak. If you're curious about the little boat building project I did, it's on my other personal channel, where basically I made a boat out of MDF, and MDF is a timber that should never go near water because it just swells up like a sponge and dissolves. But the little boat I've built works really, really well. It's nearly 2 years old now, and it's seen, well actually no, it's 2 years since I started building it, so it's like more than 18 months old. It's seen a summer and half a winter of use, bunch of sailing and rowing. It's been towed offshore to an island that we did a yacht race to. It's been capsized and still floats. It's stable with people in it, and it costs about $700 to build. So if you're a DIY person who'd like a tiny little boat to put on top of your car when you go camping that 3 adults can row around in, or you can sail by yourself, go to the Noisy Andrew channel and have a look. There's a 9 video series there, and I've even written a book about it, which you can do a pay as you feel on the Party Meeple store, or you can get it for free. Actually, there's a link to download it for free. But if you think it's worth supporting the work I've done, and because writing the book took a while, then you can download the PDF for free and slip me some money. Basically, just click on the button on the Party Meeple store. Anyway.
And please consider subscribing to his channel. Hit the like button. All that YouTube bullshit. We'll see you next time.